So you all know the story of Humpty Dumpty, right? We know how it ends. I guess the key is that we know how the story ends. Humpty Dumpty is eventually gonna fall, split open, be ultimately divided. we are we are going to spend a lot of time over the next few weeks talking about how the United States was so very divided and different. And if you take out your notes from chapter 7, section 2, specifically the Venn diagram section, um, the things that you've written in there that are in the north only or in the south only, those could be the things, the building blocks for what's going to divide the country. What I really want to focus on today, though, are the elements that united them. So we're going to spend a lot of time soon talking about dividing the United States. Today we'll try to understand the things that really would go in the centerpiece here, the things that united the country, whether they be social, political, cultural, economic. So let me just give you a couple of examples. And you should be using the right-hand side over here to take your notes. Just to give you an idea of spacing for your notes, we're going to end up with 4 uniting factors, okay? So let's look at uniting factor number 1. So when I say uniting factors, what I mean is things that could connect, combine, bring the North and the South together. What is it that makes them the United States? The first uniting factor is that they have this common history, common causes. The Revolution is a source of inspiration for them. Washington and Franklin have been elevated to this almost unhuman-like status, like godlike status in our history. They are united by this experiment in liberty that they're having some success with. They're united by their belief in democracy. They just really can't talk about real issues. They just have to have to stick to things that they feel comfortable talking about. Another element of this uniting factor is the War of 1812. They had a common enemy during that war. There were common struggles during that war. We were losing bad. We were losing everywhere bad, whether it was in New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, or New Orleans ultimately. Out of that war, they emerged with a common hero. Andrew Jackson is popular and famous in New York, Philadelphia, Illinois, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida. And the strange story of the beginning and end of that war is it's evidence that they had a common and shared history. And here are just some images of that are emerging during this era. That's Washington on the left being elevated to a godlike status, Franklin on the right. We've looked at this image a couple of times now. Jackson is being elevated to that status, but he's still alive and he's still somebody who's influencing the times. Right, uniting factor number 2. The idea of social mobility, also known as the American dream. There are opportunities in the United States. We still have a free and open market. If you want to get involved in an economic activity, you want to open a shop, you want to open up a clothing store, you want to open up, you want to buy some land, or you want to get some land and plant your own crops, you could do that. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. There's no class system that says you can't enter the market. And we also have a lot of land available out in the West. Open land, and it's not owned. And this was good because the population was growing fast, which is something that we're going to look at tomorrow in class. Not only was the population growing fast, but we need to think about where that population was growing, because that's going to impact the future of the country. So more people needed that land. More people needed those opportunities. A third uniting factor is, for the most part, there is a single religion in the United States. It isn't, there are different sects of Christianity, but essentially everybody is Christian. And there is this Judeo-Christian founding. We throw around this idea of being endowed by our Creator in the year of our Lord, in God we trust, things like that. That's a common language in the United States, despite the fact that there is religious freedom. Most of the people in the United States at the time were, Christians. And that unites them. And during this period, there's going to be a second religious revival that is consistent with the spirit of the Revolution. Churches come more in line with what the new American values were. The idea of controlling your own destiny, having some say, a more democratic say in your church and in the way that your church and town operated. And these new denominations of Christianity that incorporate these ideas, they take off the United States. And here's just an image of a religious revival. And this is something that happens in the North and the South and the West. This is a uniting factor because this is a common theme. That's something that unites them. The fourth uniting factor is they are connected by the same government, the central government. Now, granted, we could talk a lot about what divides them here because they're going to have different ideas of what that government should be, how strong it should be. Are they Jeffersonian? Are they Hamiltonian? We could talk about that. That remains. However, it is a uniting factor because it is their government. They send representatives from Georgia there. They send representatives from Vermont there. They send representatives from Kentucky there, just like they send representatives from Maryland there. It is a place where they can have the important discussions and conversations. Yes, there still remains the potential for division in this government because they have to make decisions. What is proved more often than not, though, and what makes it really a uniting factor, is that it is a place of compromise. And this is maybe the most significant uniting factor. The ability of Northerners and Southerners and sometimes Westerners to talk about an issue, to talk about a problem that they see, to really have their own views and stance on them based on their own philosophies and based on their own regional needs, and coming to a common ground. And without this, what could happen? What are some of the possibilities of things that could happen if they are unable to compromise? And those are things that we'll eventually consider when we talk more about what divides them. The Congress is a place where, once we get past the War of 1812 and we get back more to, normal politics, Hamiltonian, Jeffersonian thinking, it is a place where those arguments can take place. It can be civil. It can be about moving the country forward in your interpretation of what that looks like, and then working toward a compromise to try to make the best future for the entire country. And that's why that government's a uniting factor. Where we're heading, though, is the fact that I have 4 uniting factors, and we're going to spend the better part of 3.5, 4 weeks talking about the things that divided them and the slow process towards Humpty Dumpty here falling off the wall, splitting open. The only difference is that in the nursery rhyme we don't get put, it doesn't get put back together again. What we'll have to see is what does it take to get the United States back together after it ultimately does divide. And so what I wanted you to come away from this video with was an understanding of the things that united the country socially, politically, culturally, and economically. And those things, just to review those 4 things, it's a common history and experience that unites them. They have that they could talk about, that they could bring together. The idea of social mobility, everybody can make it, and that's true whether you're in the South or the North or in the West. There is a current of religion that connects them, and the fact that they have one government, one constitution, where they can lay out their grievances, lay out their problems, and hopefully come up with a compromise, and that unites them as well. What I would like for you to do now is I would like for you to go to my website, and in our online assessments, I have a Google form titled Humpty Dumpty, and I would like for you to go on there and fill out that form, and that is how I'm going to check to make sure that you're doing your homework. If your form is not filled out by the time classes start tomorrow, you're going to get a 0 out of 5 on that, and it's not going to be made up.